I'm going to assume we're live, Mark. So everybody's watching. My name is Michael Smith with Teach Construction. I am here today with Mark Rogers and I got it wrong the first time, so we'll see if I get it right this time, but Efficiency Revolution.
That's right.
So we're continuing our live stream series, the live stream about green jobs. This particular session, we're going to do more about energy audits, energy efficiency conversations. So those of you that watched our last live stream, or those of you that may want to watch it afterwards, we worked and had a conversation with Groundwork Denver. They were doing energy audits for qualified homes, so a low-income home program, and coming in doing energy audits under grant dollars, and then also performing some of the retrofits to save those customers some money.
Okay.
So we're going to continue some of those conversations. And what we really would love is for those that are coming in live, put some questions in chat. And I better get my chat open, but put some questions in chat where you can ask Mark or myself any question about energy efficiency, about energy audits. Certainly we can talk about local programs here in Colorado. But what we really also want to do is talk about jobs in that industry and what somebody would need to know to be effective and to have a successful career in an energy efficiency space. So I'm going to stop staring at you and start looking at you. And Mark, first of all, thanks for being here. We're in the WORKNOW office. The beauty of construction, myself, I think you right now, we get to work really anywhere we want and remote. No longer do we have a lot of brick and mortar. Do you currently have a physical office space?
We don't right now. I have a place that's being built.
Okay, so you're going to go back to a physical space.
Well, hope so.
Okay.
We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, they don't have the pricing on the place yet.
Right.
But yeah, we hope to be in a new space by about this time next year.
Okay. I'm a big fan of the fact that if I don't have to go to an office anymore, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I really love about this industry is I can work from home from times and then be out on a job site or out at somebody else's space. So it is, I think, if I dare I say something positive coming out of a COVID pandemic, the change to the entire work environment. I think construction's been that way for a long time, but it certainly opened it up a lot more that if you don't have to spend the money on a brick and mortar space, don't do it.
Yeah, that's true. We do need a space to store our construction vehicles and materials, though.
Sure.
So that's the main reason why we're looking at a space like that.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, construction vehicles and materials.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys do? What is Energy Efficiency Revolution? What do they do?
So we are a home performance contractor, and what that means is we come in and we do usually an assessment of the home ahead of time before starting the work, obviously. Sometimes we can do a quote remotely if it's a fairly simple job. Just look up the square footage on the county assessor's website, and that's usually enough information for us to get going and at least provide a ballpark quote to the customer. But we'll come in and do an assessment, and oftentimes that consists of doing an energy audit first, where we do an air leakage test with a device called a blower door and an infrared camera. We also do combustion safety testing on the furnace and water heater. So we'll see if there are any carbon monoxide problems, make sure that the carbon monoxide is within acceptable limits and that all of it is going up the flue.
Where it belongs.
Yeah, exactly, and out of the house. So we do this energy audit at the house, and then we write a report which details the problems that we found, what's good and what's bad about the house, and we address the customer's concerns. So if they are having a problem with comfort in the house, maybe some rooms that are too hot or too cold, or if they noticed a big spike in their electricity bills or the gas bills, we can drill down and figure out what those problems are being caused by, and then offer solutions. And that gets into, offering a proposal to take care of some of the problems that we find, or maybe referring out to other contractors if we don't do some of the work. For example, we're not currently installing HVAC equipment. We might seal up ducts, maybe add a duct in one room if it's not too difficult to get to.
So you mentioned both cost savings for an energy audit, but also a lot about comfort. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming what you're saying is when somebody's living in their house and it's just, you turn the heat on, it just doesn't get warm enough, or maybe one room is cold and another room is hot.
Exactly.
So you're doing some help fixing some of those problems?
Right. Yeah. And sometimes these problems are caused by multiple contributing factors. So, maybe there's not enough airflow coming from a specific duct, or maybe the insulation around a specific room, like above a tuck under garage, where the garage is underneath of a bedroom. Maybe the insulation is not sufficient there. And these are, there's more than one facet to that problem. And we try to at least attack some of the factors that are involved, and then we let them know the next steps if it doesn't completely solve it.
So is more of your business the analysis, or is more of your business fixing what you find?
Right. Revenue wise, more of it is fixing the problems that we find.
Okay.
So yeah, we're at our core trying to fix these problems.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about what is an energy audit. So you get a customer, whether that be through some programs off camera. We were talking about programs that you get through Xcel Energy that helps with these processes. But let's just say you're at someone's house. What does an energy auditor have to do?
Yeah, so the energy auditor is going around and physically inspecting the house for the insulation levels, keeping an eye out for safety issues like loose wiring. If they find that there's wiring connections that are not properly terminated inside junction boxes in an attic, we'll keep an eye on those things and report them to the customer. But mostly it's things like checking insulation levels, doing that infrared camera scan so we can see if there are weak points in the home's thermal envelope, which is the insulation boundary there. And also we'll do the air leakage test, which will reveal more air leaks with the infrared camera, or can help the infrared camera find those air leaks. So we're basically just evaluating the entire house as a system. A lot of companies that are focused just on selling one particular improvement, like say windows or furnaces.
So on that, even if you do insulation work after your audits, you don't do windows.
Correct.
So you could find that a house could perform better if it had better windows, or it could have been a poor installation at one point, or what have you. So you're not there just to say, hey, this is what you need and I happen to sell it. You're there to really do an analysis and to help a customer out. You do insulation, but and air sealing too?
Yes, air sealing as well. So when we do this air leakage test with the blower door, we're measuring the home's total air leakage, and then we report that to the customer and compare it to what would be required for a new code built home. So we can say you are 4 times leakier than a new code built home, for example. And by the way, Xcel Energy offers to give you more rebates for some of this improvement work. So if we're able to reduce the home's air leakage by at least 20%, you can get $200, 30% of the cost, up to $200 for air sealing improvements, and 30% of the cost of insulation in your attic, up to $400.
So get rebates from Xcel, but are the Fed still doing energy rebates? They were a while back, I know.
Yeah, so until this year, it's been a 10% tax credit on the cost of materials, and that went up to 30%.
Okay.
Up to a $1,200 limit.
All right. So I don't really want to sound like a commercial here, where we're saying, hey, look at all these rebates you can get. But bottom line is, well, 2 things I want to say. Bottom line is the more energy you can save in a house, the less you spend on it. So obviously you're saving it. And homes my home was a production home built in the 70s. So luckily it was about 75, so I don't have to deal with lead paint or anything else. But it's garbage. When I first got it, I was surprised on how poorly it was constructed. Now, homes are better today, but there's still some garbage out there, I'll say. So the educated consumer can know how their house performs a little bit. They can improve how that house operates for comfort level, but also save money. So I said I had 2 things. The second thing is, and we say this often, and I think I'll put a ticker on the stream in a minute, but through WorkNow on worknowlearn.org, we offer several classes to anybody that's engaged within WorkNow. So if you're interested in learning about how a house performs, we've got a building science course. If you're interested in what energy efficiency is, we've got content on that in our Green Jobs Explained course. So bottom line is, contact your navigator with WorkNow and get access to WorkNow Learn and learn some of that. So if anything that Mark is saying triggers something and you say, hey, that's kind of neat, I want to learn more, there's a lot of content available for you to do that. You have to be part of WorkNow to participate in those, but that's just go to WorkNow. And I'll put there's stuff on the stream here in a moment, but if you just go to WorkNow, you can learn more. There you go, worknowlearn.org. And you can learn more about how to be part of WorkNow, but you can also learn more about how to access those online resources. So apologize, got to do that little plug to WorkNow. If you haven't really done much and with WorkNow yet, is an organization that's really a group of organizations here in Denver. And every organization that participates with the WorkNow platform, their job is to help people get jobs in construction and keep jobs in construction, whether it is to address challenges that they have in their personal life that is limiting some work opportunities, or it's just they didn't know how or where to get some of those basic skills. So the WorkNow platform really is a bunch of people helping people and really developing them so they can stay in the industry, which our industry needs. So you've got several people that work with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of training does an energy auditor need?
So there are two main organizations that will allow you to get the certifications that you need. One of them is the Building Performance Institute, which we normally refer to as BPI. And they're primarily focused on the existing home market. And then there's ResNet, that's Residential Energy Services Network, and that's primarily focused on the new construction side of things. So there's normally for each one of those, there's about a week-long training, and then you have to do some self-study and do some practice in the field with the equipment and make sure that you know how to operate all of that, and then you can do your exams to get the certification.
Well, I did mine 13 years ago, I think. So let's see if I'm still correct. I mean, I went to class and learned about basics of building science. So how does heat transfer around a house? How does air move around a house? Moisture, big issue within indoor safety. So I don't know, it was about a week, I think I was in a classroom, and then took 200 question test, or maybe that was the ResNet one. One was harder than the other, I remember that. But once I passed that, then we went in the field and had to perform tests on a house. Can you walk me through what a test is like? Because a lot of people get kind of nervous if they and stay away from training when we say the word testing.
Yeah, so starting out with the BPI test, that is, and they have multiple different certifications you can get, but two of the most kind of standard ones that people get when they're doing energy audits are the building analyst and the building envelope. They're almost the same. The building analyst is a little bit more basic in that it doesn't really cover, in the field exam, it doesn't really cover the improvements that one would wish to make
so just
to
correct
some of the problems that they're finding. Correct? Okay. Yeah, sometimes people do the two exams at the same time in the same session. So that's an option, but each certification costs a certain amount of money. So sometimes people just stick with one, and you usually don't need to get both of them to advance in the field. However, it's a nice feather in your cap if you can say you have both.
So when you're hiring somebody, do they already have to have that BPI certification or be a ResNet rater before they work for you, or do you help them along that way?
Yeah, right now we're still a fairly small company. So at this point, when we hire an energy auditor, they have to have that certification to begin with.
What about experience? If I went through and passed my test, could I apply and have a good chance of getting a job with you? Or do I need to have a year experience or what have you?
We prefer to have people that have experience because again, we're a small business, so every hour that I spend training someone is an hour that I don't have to spend on the weekends recreating because there are, a lot
I
of
think everybody answers the
background
same way and
tests.
says, I want to have experience. But
Yeah.
the reality is, if you're in construction, you want to be in construction, you have experience, you're already working.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of how do we get new people to come in.
Right.
Have you hired people before that have not had field experience but had the knowledge?
Not for energy auditing. And until about
What about the retrofit side? Or
the
fixing
retrofit side, I have hired people that don't have experience for that.
Okay.
And sometimes people don't realize what they're getting themselves into when they are doing this field work for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult work, and this is not the energy auditing side of it. This is installing insulation, being on your hands and knees in crawl spaces. Sometimes these crawl spaces are 1.5 feet tall, and you have to get on your belly and slide underneath ducts.
So you've got to be comfortable with small spaces for some of the retrofit work.
Small spaces, and you have to be physically fit enough to, repeatedly lift bags of insulation into the machine, or crawl around in an attic for 4 to 6 hours in a day. And sometimes the temperatures can be very cold or very hot depending on the time of year.
So it is possible, though, if somebody was interested in getting into this industry. So I personally would recommend get some of that knowledge from Work Now, Learn courses. Consider getting a BPI testing, but maybe reach out to a company yourself or like you and say, I can work on the retrofit side as I earn the rest of my certifications or get enough knowledge, and then I want to get out from underneath the crawl space and start doing the auditing.
Yeah, that's a very good way to go about it if you're trying to get a foothold in the industry.
Okay.
Kind of pay your dues doing the hard work
right.
in the field first.
Fantastic. So I've got some notes here, and I know I'm way off of topics, but so we were doing some online lessons for Work Now Learn, and about the 2021 IECC, which is the International Energy Conservation Code. So the energy code typically gets adopted into a building code. Every jurisdiction can do this differently. Colorado is insane out here. In fact, that every local jurisdiction has a different version. You could be working in Boulder and have one set of rules. You could be working in Douglas County and have a completely different set of rules. Denver just adopted their new green code, which is majority of a 2021 building code. I bring that up for two reasons. One, if you want to learn more about building code, we have a course on Work Now Learn. Catch a theme here, that you can learn about the energy code. Highly recommend. The course is just not easy. There's a lot of conversations about just what code is and how to interpret it and how to comply with it. But my question to you is, with Denver now shifting to a newer energy code, does that change how you do business in Denver area? Does it open up other opportunities for you?
Yeah, so most of the work that we're doing in Denver is attics, crawl spaces, that sort of thing. So yeah, the each time the code is changed, you have to check and see what the required R value of insulation is. That's the performance level of the insulation. So for example, switching from the 2018 to the 2021 code, that requires taking the insulation from about R49 up to R60. So that's a difference of about 4 inches more insulation when we're.
If you've ever been in an attic, though, 4 inches is a fair amount.
It is.
I mean, those are tight spaces.
Right, and sometimes you can't get that amount of insulation where you have a roof that's pitched right to the walls. So you have to provide a little bit of space above it, but you get it as high as you can in those areas while still allowing some ventilation over top.
Right, for existing homes.
For existing homes, right. And for newer homes, they may be using what's called a raised heel truss, which we were talking about earlier, that just raises up those edges of the trusses so that you can
have more space there to fit insulation. Yep.
Maybe not 20 inches, but maybe close to it.
I feel like a commercial all the time too, but I'll plug it again. Work Now Learn, there's a new course we released on roof framing theory. So everything about rafters, about trusses, the assembly process. We're not trying to teach people how to frame a roof, but I want people to understand how a roof is framed. Because from an energy auditor perspective, you need to understand how that house performs. And an attic is a really big heat loss section.
Mhm.
So we've got a course on roofs where you can understand where raised teal trusses are, or how do I frame that if I'm using rafters. And if that is confusing, it should be.
Mhm.
Go take a course and learn about more about it. Okay, so is there work that you do or can be doing with new home construction, or are you mainly doing all current existing homes?
Yeah, primarily we're doing existing homes. We do occasionally do some new construction work, and most of that consists of code compliance testing. So there is a provision in the code now which requires that you have to test the air leakage rate of a house, and it has to be no more than a certain amount. And for most homes, that's going to be 3 what we call air changes per hour. So that's the entire volume of the air that's inside the house. 3 that leaves the house 3 times per hour under the test pressure that we apply with the fan.
Okay. So again, there are videos on YouTube, but we have them on our course too to understand how a blower door works and all that. But you also have to now test duct work. So I mean, are you doing that often, or?
Not too often. So most of the time that's going to be when the ducts are outside of what they call the conditioned space. That's the thermal envelope of the house. So if you have any portion of a duct that runs through an attic, for example, or a crawl space that's ventilated to the outside, that whole duct system has to be tested and it has to reach a certain air tightness standard.
Got it. So I'm going to pause for a minute
Sure.
to have a question. Looks like we have a question from a Rich Marr of how would a newbie get the experience they need to move into an entry-level position? Now, I'm going to assume, well, let's answer it both ways.
Mhm.
One for the retrofit technician, person improving that house after an audit's done. And then the other one we'll talk about is a newbie coming into the industry for the first time.
Mhm.
So the newbie coming in for the retrofit, what do they have to know? Or what's helpful for them?
Yeah.
Sorry to
So what we like to see when I'm making a hire is you kind of need to know some construction lingo. You need to know how to use basic power tools and hand tools. So hammer, screwdriver, at a minimum, circular saw, jigsaw, power drill. These kinds of things are very helpful.
Okay.
It also helps if you have a background where you've demonstrated that you have good balance, for example, because one of the risks in doing that kind of work is you're up in an attic and there's nothing to support your weight other than those roof trusses. If you step in between a roof truss and onto the drywall, you could potentially fall through. And that's not something anybody wants to have
That's
happen.
not a good day.
So we like to see people who have a demonstrated amount of experience in those types of spaces.
Mhm.
It's not always possible, but that's what we like to see.
Right. Okay, so then they're going to be progressing through either adding insulation or doing air sealing or what have you. What about a brand new person? I know as a small business, you're really looking for those that have certification and some experience for your auditing team, but pretend you didn't for a moment.
Right.
What's your recommendation to somebody out there who says, I want to be an energy auditor?
Yeah. So, I'd recommend reading some books on the subject to start with to see if it is actually what you're interested in.
I'm sorry, reading books?
Yeah.
Do
Those
people read books
things
anymore?
that used to be printed with paper.
Okay.
Right. Words on a page.
Right.
Yeah. Reading some books, maybe watching some YouTube videos. There are some good ones out there that are building performance oriented. Matt Reisinger's YouTube channel is one that comes to mind. He has some really good stuff. He's out of Austin, Texas. And he has a podcast as well. And then, Robbie Schwarz, who we were talking about earlier, he has a show called Build Tank. That's a podcast.
Yep. And Robbie is who we partnered with on our code compliance courses. So
Okay, good.
if you bought some of our lesson videos, you get to see. He's been around a while in our space. So
Yeah.
I know he was one of my instructors. I think you said he was one of yours.
mine as well.
Yeah.
Back about 22 years ago now.
Yep.
So great guy. Just getting kind of a general feel for the industry using those resources, and then, maybe working for a contractor that does, remodeling work, and, just trying to get the basic construction skill set.
So it could be a
that
good
way.
opportunity for somebody who is in construction,
Mhm.
but I don't know, maybe their back doesn't work as well as mine doesn't work as well as it used
Right.
to, or
Yeah.
my belly gets in the way. So it could be something where I want to stay in construction,
Mhm.
but I'm no longer slinging bricks or
Mhm.
framing walls or
Mhm.
what have you. So
Yeah.
it could be a transition.
Yeah, it's not too difficult or physically demanding. The blower door fan though does weigh about 35 pounds, so you have to keep that in mind.
Right.
So yeah.
If I can't carry 35 pounds anymore, I'm really gonna have to start worrying.
Right.
I'm going to look at anybody out there too. Please put a comment if you have any questions. We've got another 5 minutes or so that we're going to, Mark and I'll be chatting, but I'd love to answer any direct questions. There is a statement here by somebody that SFL that says new homes are cheaply made. So I do agree with you from several builders, not all, but several. The reason I want to chat about this for a minute is I'm a big advocate that if you're buying a new home and educate yourself, you can get a better home. So there's two things. One, as a home buyer, learn about what a house should be built, or how a house should be built. You get the opportunity to do several walks of that home as it's being built. And if you're talking about brand new homes, and look for improvements. If you're buying a home that's an existing home, the more you know, certainly you're going to hire an inspector, but I'm a big fan of educate yourself and you can help get that house cheaper if it doesn't perform the way the home is supposed to be performing. Now, with that said, is the fact that now building code, I'm not a libertarian, but I'm certainly not a big fan of big government, but I do have to agree that building code is a good thing because there are people out there that sometimes get to building and they don't know what they're doing. So building code is there to have at least a minimum standard. And if you look at the new 2021 code, especially on the energy side, it's a big jump forward from some of the other code iterations that we've seen out there, meaning they're requiring, at least in your base limit of R60 in an attic. That's a lot of insulation when it was R30, 6 years ago or what have you. So you're making leaps forward. You're also now requiring homes to make sure that they don't leak as much as the blower door you were talking about. But what's more important is it's not just code that says, make sure this happens. It's code that says, make sure this happens. And by the way, I'm going to require you to hire an independent third party to prove to the code official that it is performing properly. Kind of what we were talking about with those blower door tests, which I think is great for our industry because you're going to see the need for individual doing energy audits for new construction, that demand grow. And we've seen too long, it was 15 years ago, I got my training with the intention of doing energy auditing and realized there was not enough work for me to make a business. But so I had to do other things. But I think if someone were to do that today, you can make a living. You can build a business. You can build something that will grow. How many auditors do you have on staff
I have
right now?
2 auditors on staff and 2 installers.
Okay, so that could become 5 or whatever size you really want to get the business to.
And we may soon be hiring an office person to do bookkeeping and submitting rebate paperwork and scheduling, things like that. So.
That's a great thing, and thank you for bringing that up. Not everything in construction is carrying a blower door in and doing that or doing the retrofit. There are support staff that are incredibly important for our industry. How valuable do you think would be if we hiring on a support staff person that understood what was happening in the field, just even if it's nomenclature?
Very helpful. Because when we're submitting rebate paperwork, you have to to Excel Energy, for example, you have to report what the air change rate of the house is. So you have to know how to do that basic math to put that in the form, and it helps to know what all of that means.
Fantastic. So in our closing minutes, what recommendation can you give to somebody who is right now seeing this live or watching it later and saying, I'm thinking about a job in energy auditing? What advice can you give them?
Yeah, I would say, get into construction if you're not already. And like I was mentioning, look at those resources, like, check out the YouTube channels and and books that relate to this industry.
And work their learn to take a course.
Yes, that too. One particular book that was helpful when I first started in this industry is Residential Energy by John Krieger. That's Saturn Resource Management is the company that puts that out. Excellent book.
It still is the go-to book, I think.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so before I did my training 20-something years ago, that was required reading, and we had to read the whole book as well as another manual before we even got into the classroom, so that the instructor could hit the ground running.
Fantastic. Is there anything you want to add before we sign off for folks?
I think we've covered just about everything, but look us up on Facebook, throw us a like. We'll be starting up an Instagram channel pretty soon here, and visit our website for more information, efficiencyrevolution.com.
I put it down the bottom, and I think I put on there before looking, but you had a hiring link. You just filled that position, but as you grow, I imagine you're going to be looking for more folks. So.
Yeah, so check back every month or so and see if we're hiring.
And if Mark's not hiring, right, when you're looking for it, there are slews of other companies in energy efficiency space or retrofits to make a home more energy efficient. So there are a lot of job opportunities out there. And in fact, you can work directly with WorkNow and your navigator or their career coaches, and they will connect you to available positions. So I want to thank you for joining us. If you're watching live, get back to work. It's lunchtime, and we're about to go have some lunch. And if you're watching these on a recording, feel free to put some comments. We still listen to them. If there are questions you want us to ask in our next session, and that next session, look on the YouTube page and Facebook page for updates, but it's going to be with a company that does stormwater management. So on new construction sites, how do you make sure that those sites are not, lack of better terms, contaminating the rest of the environment around it? So a really interesting space. In fact, I'm heading to the job site right after lunch to take a look at it so we can stream from there in our session next month. Thanks for being with us. Mark, thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you to WorkNow for all the work you do for everybody entering this construction industry. Have a great day.